Hi, my name is Sean Beasley, and it's time to do a video about OTRS 3.1 Beta 1. OTRS 3.1 will be coming out very soon. It has some major improvements as far as integration and development is concerned. But additionally to these improvements, there's also been a couple of changes in the ticket workflow as well as some other small changes. These have been announced on OTRS.org's website, and I'm going to go through them one at a time with you. One of the first things that's definitely going to jump out and bite you is the workflow in the tickets. So before it wasn't possible to add more than one customer to a ticket. For example, if you have a queue that sends out notifications based on new telephone tickets, it would be nice if you could have multiple people informed that a ticket was created. It might be, I don't know, you have somebody supporting your OTRS while your actual IT technician's in the field, and they create a report, and the IT technician should be informed, so I can add the customer that's reporting as the customer, plus also additionally the IT technician, and have an event-based notification which triggers an event to send this person a notification, for example. So when I click on the phone ticket, it doesn't really look a whole lot different than it did when I go back to 3.0. All the fields are still there as they were before, with customer information. But what's going to come into your attention is this add button. So when I start searching my users, I'm going to create a user here, and then I'm going to add my technician, for example. I can just add a random email address. Then I'm going to choose my queue, call it test, and click create. When I've done this and then I go into the ticket, then I will notice that there's now two customers, even though that this article is a customer phone article. It also has the advantage when I now want to reply to this telephone call. For example, I have a first level operator who takes the telephone call and gives me the ticket, and then I see in the first article what the cause of the problem is, and I want to inform both people at the same time. Then I can just choose the reply all empty answer, and I have both people in the to field at the same time. So that's one added advantage. The same thing is, there's been some changes in the email tickets. So if we move now to the email tickets, we're going to see here that there's also not a lot of changes. If I go to an email ticket in the 3.0, so now I've here got from, to, CC, BCC, service level agreement. I've got services turned on in this system, not in this system. Here I have to customer and CCC and BCC. So I'm going to start adding then my users. I'm going to select that one, for example. And now what they've also done here is they've done the same thing for the CC field. Previously you had to go to the address book, but now they've included Ajax search here as well. So if I start searching here, then I'm going to find that I can also use my Ajax search here as well. And that's a wonderful advantage. The same thing happens in the BCC field now too. The next thing you're going to notice is a feature called phone call inbound. There was always a feature called phone call outbound. Looking at the 3.0, we'll see the phone call outbound feature. The problem was, when I created a phone call outbound for everything, then when I looked in the ticket history, I would see that there was here a phone call agent, which not really true. The agent didn't call me. I didn't call out. The customer called me. That's why I wanted a phone call inbound. And so there was a little bit of problem with the definition of the history, and they wanted to be able to actually customize this mask a little bit more. Now when I create a phone call inbound, you'll see it's the same mask with all of the same configurations. I can then control this with ACLs and permissions and things like that individually from the phone call inbound. We might not want people to do inbound phone calls outbound phone calls versus inbound phone calls. That's why you can configure each one separately. And now when I click submit, I see that there's a difference between the agent phone call and the customer phone call. It's a different type, as well as it has its own settings, as well as it has its own history. So now I can differentiate between phone calls that were inbound and phone calls that were outbound. So that's an interesting new feature for statistics, as well as for filtering, that I can filter just the telephone conversations, for example, that I've had with the customer. Another added feature is the ability to define a specific sender for this postmaster filter, new ticket reject. Now here we have the filter. If you have it turned on and configured, anything that matches this from criteria will automatically be rejected by the OTRS, and this would be the mail that that you would receive. Now in the case of OTRS 3.1, we have the same setup, with the exception we have here the ability to give this messaging system, or this message, a new name. Up until this point, it has always used the admin email address configured in OTRS, which could result in a loop or attacks that you don't want to have. So for people that are fishing for email addresses and systems to attack, now they're not going to be able to get back to your system if you're using this no reply address, for example. Now this sender type only works if you use the new ticket reject module here in Core Postmaster. If you have a module set up like that here in the normal Postmaster filter from example.com, ignore yes, then it's going to use the normal system email address again. Another feature promises to be very exciting, and that's ever since the ticket overviews have been put into place, we've had a lot of globalization going on, and there's been really hard to customize views, and they're customized then one time system wide. So here in 3.1 there's a configuration option called front-end agent ticket overview, where a lot of these settings that people have been looking for to customize have actually been included and can now be customized here. So now you have the ability in the web configuration tool to customize the overviews for small, for medium, and for preview. And there's some different variables that you can customize depending on the size. Here you have customer info. You can choose to show information about the customer or not. You can choose, you can even create a new module if you wanted to for this, in order to have your own module for an overview. You can change the name, and you can even change the short name that appears in the header column to switch from the different views to the other. Here you can choose whether you want to have the ticket title or the last customer subject in the column header. And here you have the medium view. You've got the medium customer info turned off. These are pretty much the same settings as in the small. And here you have a lot more that you can do, not only customer info, but you can decide how much of the info that you want to show. You can also show the default preview on lines. You can make the preview window smaller or larger. Yeah, character breaking, so at line 90 or line 72 if you want to. Again, the name, the shortcut. Here you can strip empty lines in some emails. With you can strip the empty lines that are caused by some email editors. And here you can, this is also for all of the other views, you can turn on or turn off ticket actions, or ticket actions per ticket. Now what is that? So let's go ahead and look at those. If I go up here to an overview, then I have a menu that appears here. These are the ticket actions per ticket. Now, before you could turn them on system wide, so you either had this hover menu or you didn't. Normally you would have to click this on to get this menu. If I switch to another menu, then you'll see what I'm talking about. Here I'm in the medium, and this ticket action list doesn't appear. So this would behave then like the 3.0 did. If I click here, then I get my list of ticket actions that I can perform. Rather than turning it on system wide, I can now do this globally, or I can do this globally per overview rather than doing it system wide. Here I can turn on and off different sender types. So if I just basically in my preview I just want to see what the agent has sent out, and the customer, I don't want to see system messages, then I can set this to 0. Or if I just want to see customer messages, customer input, then I can set agent and system to 0. Additionally, I can also set a specific type of article to expand. Now, right now, the last customer article will be the one that will be expanded if all of the articles have currently been read by the agent accessing the article. Here I can define which type of article I want to have expanded. I might want to jump down to the to the last internal note, for example, rather than landing at the customer article all the time. And here we're going to see some new settings, and these are going to be in all different views now. Instead of having a long list of fields, we're going to see here the dynamic fields. I'm going to be able to talk about these here in a minute. In previous versions of OTRS, there was the ability to add additional information via free fields. This was very static, as it was only configurable via the web front end. I could turn on up to 16 free text fields in order to add additional information in my tickets. And this became a problem if you had too many free text fields, because it was set at a value of 16 and it was not extendable. When I click on free fields in OTRS 3.1, then I'm going to notice there's no default configurations with the exception for title. You're going to think, where's my free text fields? Now don't worry, if you're upgrading and you've had free text fields configured, then they will appear here as well and be converted to dynamic fields. This is only a comment about new installations or test installations. OTRS has now created dynamic fields. Dynamic fields are configurable database fields, and they can be found in the admin section under ticket settings, dynamic fields. You have now the ability to create live on-the-fly database fields, which reduces the limitations on fields you can have. Here I have article actions. I can choose any of these settings from checkbox to text area. And here are ticket settings. Now you have to be careful later which fields you create, because not all of the fields that you will create will be available. Article or dynamic fields of type ticket will be available in the free text field, and dynamic fields of type article will be available in all views where articles will be created, for example agent ticket note, for example. So let's go ahead and create a article checkbox, for example, called QS scene. We'll say that this quality assurance has been verified. It's a valid field. It's a type checkbox. Object type is article, and the field order is 1, so it will appear as the very first field, and it's going to be default value unchecked. Now I'm going to click save, and then I have to go into, for example, view note in the admin settings, and at the very bottom we can then add the key QS scene, and we set it to 1 to be enabled, 2 would be enabled and required, and 0 would be disabled. Then we'll click update. When we now go in to add a note, for example, we will see that there's a new field, quality assurance verified. So a QS manager could say, I've verified this ticket, and click this checkbox, and that we would know. It won't be available in free fields, for example, because we've only configured it for notes. So you have to configure these fields for each type of article action that you want for this field to be visible. And if at any time you don't need to utilize this field anymore, you can go ahead and deactivate it via the management, set it to invalid temporary. I would recommend configuring it out of your agent ticket note. However, if it's set to invalid and I click on note, then it will no longer be shown because it's set to invalid. So you can kind of trick the system into thinking that it's been configured out of your system. It's not, however, recommended. So I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration of some of the new features of 3.1. These are the primary features. There's been a lot of bug fixes. Please read the release notes for more information and enjoy OTRS.